Welcome back to Wherever It Goes. We finally reached episode 20, which means that was a huge celebration, which finally means I think we're in the top 1% of podcasts. I don't know if that's how it works. Let me explain. I think it's 95% of podcasts, or maybe 90% of podcasts make it to their fourth episode. So after 3 episodes, they usually quit, most of them, 90%. And then 99%, I think it is, quit before 20 episodes. That means that we're in the 1% that's made it to 20 episodes. So thank you guys for listening. It's taken us, what month is it? The 9th. We're 9 months in.
September, yeah.
Or I guess maybe we're 8 months into the podcast. And it took us 8 months to hit 20 episodes. We're still going though. And we're still planning on making more content. This week, we're talking about if we're racist or not, but
no, that is not the topic.
We're going to push that to a little bit later in the episode. First, pretty big update in our family. Shepherd just turned 1, which is
breaks my heart.
Pretty big deal.
He's not a little baby anymore. Like now he looks like a little kid. He acts like a little kid. He's walking and it's just, oh my gosh.
Yep, he's not
my baby's not a baby.
He's not a baby.
He's a toddler. It's crazy.
He's so cute though. Still just so cute. To have a little son is just something that I did not think. I didn't think I would care for a son as much as I do. But I do.
Okay, that sounds bad. What you're saying is, because I remember you telling me this when we were pregnant with Phoebe. You always thought you were going to be a girl dad. You were never like, oh, I want a boy really bad. You never had that that feeling of I want a son. I want to raise a son.
I definitely wanted a girl.
Yeah.
And so I got Phoebe and I was happy. That's why I wore pink for the gender reveal that we did for Phoebe because I really wanted a girl. You wanted a girl too, right? Mm-hmm. So we got our girl. And then after that, I was like, it'd be cool to have a boy. So then we had Shepherd. And now I'm like, this is so cool to have a daughter and a son is so cool. He's just so cute. And I don't know. I didn't maybe understand the relationship that a father has with his son. And so, but somehow I understood I wanted a daughter. I don't know what it is.
Well, the way you explained it to me back when I was pregnant with Phoebe was that you grew up with women. You did not have a male figure really up until you were 12.
Yeah.
You didn't really have a dad. And so you were telling me that you were honestly scared if you were going to have a boy because you don't know how to raise a boy. You were raised by women. You're comfortable around women. So, he had 3 sisters and his mom. And so.
Yeah, I think after having Phoebe, though, maybe I became a little bit more of a man or maybe more masculine or something to where I
think not even just after having Phoebe, but when we got married, you kind of stepped up into this leadership role of a man, right? And then that's when I noticed you starting to take things like learning how to use power tools more seriously, learning how to do these masculine things that typically men teach their sons. You taught yourself. And I watched you kind of take that into your own hands and watching videos, teaching yourself how to do it, teaching yourself how to work on the car or work on the motorcycle.
I'm wondering if...
And all this stuff that you're going to later on teach Shepherd, you had to teach yourself first. And you're still learning all this stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I'm way behind most guys. But maybe not, because a lot of guys don't really... I don't think they don't care to learn about masculine stuff. And I also think that they just weren't taught. I think a lot of boys grew up without their fathers and don't know how to do things that men should know how to do. And so, yeah, I'm having to learn that all by myself, which is cool. I do have some good mentors in my life that are kind of helping me learn what it means to be a man. So, that's cool. So now with Shepherd, I'm like excited about teaching him all these father-son things, playing catch with him. Teaching him how to change the oil on a motorcycle or whatever it is. I'm excited to learn those kinds of things with him and teach him and pass it on. And then kind of start a legacy of like, this is the father that you need to be too. Not just the man or the boy that you need to become, but this is the father that you need to become. So, and it's just so beautiful, the family.
You know,
so
I know. You know what I'm so excited for, and it makes me want to cry thinking about it, is like, so I kind of had a broken family. You had a broken family. And so we didn't have that, like, that tight knit. Like, I don't have a super tight bond with my grandma, right? I don't have a super close relationship with anyone in my, not even my brothers and sisters. I don't even have a close relationship with my siblings. And so I'm just so excited for us to like, it makes me really want to like do parenting right and have a good relationship with our kids and make sure that our kids have a good relationship with each other, because then when they have kids, I'll have a good relationship with my kids and my grandkids will know me. And I just want like these big family holidays where we're all so close to each other. And I just want like a big family and like people to lean on.
We have
people that I can trust. Like, I hate to say it, but there's not a lot of people in my family that I full 100% trust, you know, maybe except my mom, but like my siblings, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents,
I just like counting on them,
right? Like
you can't count on.
I can't ask my family for anything.
I think we have an opportunity to, with our family, we have an opportunity to live it the way that God intended it and the way that He created it to be, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, here's the question of the week for me that I got in trouble for asking, but marriage, sex, and children, my question is, should you have children if you're married, or should you be open to children? I think the answer is yes. I don't think I've heard a valid argument why you shouldn't have children if you're not married. I think that all three are combined. Marriage, sex, and children are all the trinity of marriage, if you will. They're all part of it, and they're meant to work together and not be divided. Because when you divide it up, you have marriage is separate, right? So you have gay people getting married, and then you have children who are separate. So you have people who are buying children or trafficking children, which might be the same thing. And then you have sex, which is different. So you have people who are losing their virginity in high school and college because it's all separate, but it's meant to be together. The way that God designed it was for it to all to be together. And so it's cool that we get to, even though there's some brokenness in like our sin and things like that, we still get to have a family where all three of those things are combined. And I think we should have as many children as we possibly can.
Okay, listen.
No, hear me out.
I'm going to tell you right now, no.
Well, so my mentor, Brian, shout out to Brian, he said, and it was kind of funny that I'm shouting out to him because he told me something that someone else had told him. So maybe the credit should go to that person. But the person was telling him, the only thing that you even have a chance of bringing into heaven is your children. Like, we can't bring our home. We can't bring a big yard. We can't bring a nice car. Can't bring our money. But we get to create these souls that we're in charge of, that are,
and we get to guide them,
bone of my bone. Like they are our blood, and we get to take them into heaven and present them to God and say, look what we did with what you gave us, which is life. I think that that's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, if you think of Eden, if Eden is supposed to be restored, God said, be fruitful, multiply. And so that's what Adam and Eve had to offer to God, was children.
I certainly don't think that, I think that having children and creating life is a wonderful, beautiful thing. I think it is 100%, it's a gift. And I'm conflicted because, so a second ago I said, I'm telling you right now, absolutely not. And that's like, my flesh is like, I don't know if I could handle more kids.
Yeah.
But I'm conflicted because I often think about how, you know, if I'm really going to trust God, I say that I trust God, right? But if I'm really going to trust him, do I trust him enough to trust him with my family? And do I trust him enough to decide how many children I bring into this world? I hate to say it, but like, I'm a little bit like, I want to control that, you know? Like, there's a part of me, part of my flesh that wants to control that because I'm scared.
Which it sounds like there's not an issue with that. Like, okay, you don't want to have that many kids or you don't want to have any kids. That's up to you. Like, you have free will and all that stuff. But I think where it gets dicey, I guess, is when you ask yourself, what is the intention? Why don't you want to have more kids?
Right. Which
Hang
I
on.
think, okay,
Like,
sorry.
why don't you want to have more kids? If you don't want to have kids because you're afraid of what more kids is going to do, or you're afraid of losing your comfort, those are not valid reasons to not want to have more kids, because that is selfish. That is thinking your worldview is the purpose of life is the avoidance of hardship. So you're trying to make life as easy as it can be. And not having kids is how you make your life easier. And I don't think that it's right to not want kids for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like, I want to put my full trust in God when it comes to family planning, but there is that part of my flesh that's like, no, you don't need. And, you know, it's not just me, but this outside world, like this worldview that is, you know, sinful and hates God, right? They're all pushing. I've seen so many times, don't have more than 2 or 3 kids, because once you go past that, then you're making your kids raise their siblings and you don't have time for them, and that's child abuse, and that's a horrible life for a child. And there's all that in my ear. And then, you know, my mom even is like, don't have more than 2 kids. And I'm like, well,
That's what the world is saying. Yeah.
yeah.
And it makes sense if you're
And I don't know what
trying
God
to have
is
an
saying.
Easy life.
So I guess, I mean, if I get pregnant,
God said,
I get pregnant, you know. But
God said, he asked for us. He didn't just ask of humans. So I've been reading Genesis.
He said, be fruitful, multiply. But
and that's
what
not
does
just
that mean?
That's not just
because
for humans.
we have had kids.
He said to the animals first, to all the creatures, fill the earth. Like, so he created all creatures of all kinds. And then he said, fill the earth. And then he created man and woman and said, you too. So it's not like he's talking about the kind of creation of, so it's pretty obvious that he's talking about children. Have children, fill the earth. 2 kids. I think that we could do, like I said, it goes back to that intention. Are we afraid? Do we want to be comfortable? Are we trying to avoid hardship? Because if those are the reasons that we're not having kids, then that's not valid.
Yeah.
If God is telling you, if God has made you infertile, this is like to touch on this a little bit, because I don't want people thinking that we're saying if you're infertile, you are wrong and you can't fulfill God's command. I think it's just if your intention is to not have kids, which most people that I know who are infertile really want kids.
Yeah.
Also, it's like, kind of do it for them too. Like, look at how it is to not be able to have kids and think, is that really what you want? Like, you want to not have kids when there's these people who physically cannot, and their hearts are broken.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I think that people who are infertile or have a hard time getting pregnant, I really truly believe that is, like, God has a purpose for that. I mean, you, for example, you got adopted. Where would you be today if you didn't get adopted and you were raised in the foster care system for the rest of your childhood?
I don't know.
You would probably, honestly, be very troubled. You probably wouldn't be a Christian. You wouldn't have met me. We wouldn't have this beautiful family. You wouldn't have had a great rest of your childhood and great parents, you know? And so I honestly believe that God has a purpose for those people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he can take the brokenness and use it for good. So even if it's not designed, if it's not intended for you to be infertile, God can still use that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there's this whole issue of IVF, which has been big recently. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
So in vitro fertilization, essentially what they do is they take eggs and sperm and put them together in a lab instead of in a body. So it sounds good on the face. It sounds good. Let's create more babies. That's a good thing. But the reality of it is how they're making it is unethical. So the ends do not justify the means. So if you hear anyone saying IVF is good, it creates children, that isn't necessarily right. Just because the end product is a child, it doesn't mean that the process wasn't
So
unethical.
why do you think it's unethical?
Well, I don't think it is unethical. It is unethical. But
Why?
it's because the way that they create them is the majority of the time, it's eugenics. So they don't just fertilize one egg and try it out and see if it works. What they do is they fertilize multiple eggs and then they pick the ones that are viable. However, they deem that what is viable. They look at the different embryos, they discard the ones that they don't want. So they kill human beings because once it's fertilized, it's a human being. Then the ones that are left, the ones that are viable, that they deem viable, some of them get implanted, some of them go to the uterus. And then if there's multiple pregnancies that happen, so let's say they put 3 embryos in you and they all are healthy, they'll say, okay, this one's going to be like this one's going to be like this one's going to be like this. Let's kill these 2 and let this one live. So they'll look at all 3 of them, decide to kill two of them off and discard them, which is abortion. And then they'll let the one continue to grow. Any of the ones that were created that were not implanted, that were deemed viable, usually will get either sent to science. So they'll get tested on things like that, or they'll get frozen. So right now, I think in the US, we have over 1 million, it might be closer to 1.5 million embryos that are frozen. And there's embryo adoption where you can go and adopt one of those millions of babies that's frozen. And you can, I guess, implant it in you and let it become a human being. But a large part of them are just thrown away or frozen. And that's why it's unethical. So there's an argument that there's an ethical way of doing it, which is implanting every embryo that's created. So you create 5 of them and they all need to be implanted at some point, so that they all get the chance to live. But it creates it's this idea that children are a commodity. So which means like you can go shopping for children essentially.
Mm.
This one's a boy, these 2 are girls. Kill the girls, you get the boy. Like that's what's going on behind the scenes. But it sounds good because it's like, oh, we got a little child out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is true. Like that human being is valuable, but
Mm-hmm.
you killed how many to
Yeah.
make that one?
Yeah, it's hard because there's part of me that is like going back to trusting the Lord. Like if God wanted, say I was infertile, if God wanted me to have children, like I want to trust that he would give me children. But then part of me is like, with modern day technology, like, is that a gift? Is that something that is like, I don't know, it's hard. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, do I want to trust in modern day technology? Is that something that the Lord is like, yes, absolutely. I created science and you've figured out the science, so go and use it.
Yeah.
Or is it like, no, that's not how I intended for life to be created. That is an abomination. Is that, it's hard.
Well, I think,
I don't want to say abomination, but you know what I mean? Like that's not.
yeah. Well, I think that there are certain technologies that we're allowed to use. Anything that helps cure the sickness that is the brokenness in humanity. So let's say you're born without legs or something, and so we develop robotic legs so that you have the ability to walk. That's restoring. That's restoring
Mhm.
something that's broken, and it's not doing it in a way that breaks anything else, right? But restore as far as helping you become pregnant, I think that there's technology that can do that. That also doesn't create more brokenness. That doesn't kill more children. So yes, you can. I think if you're infertile, you have the right, I guess, to try to become pregnant. But I think if you becoming pregnant, you still have to look at the means. So you still have to look at how you're becoming pregnant. And if how you're becoming pregnant is killing hundreds of babies to get pregnant once, like that's wrong.
So then how do you feel about surrogacy?
I think surrogacy is,
Do you think that's a good thing or do you think that it's wrong?
I think it depends on the situation. I think for the most part, if it's like a gay couple that, I think we've talked about this before, but if they're
Right.
like um doing the same thing, if it's IVF, right? So one of the men in a homosexual relationship is like, hey, take my sperm, take your egg, let's make a baby, implant it, kill the rest, and then if that's not the one that we want, we'll kill that one and then try again and because I really want a blonde girl or whatever. Like I think that's the means of restoring. I think is really important. But then we go into like, can gay couples adopt, which is like,
And we've
is
already
that
talked about
restorative or
that.
is
I don't
that,
want to.
yeah. Anyway,
I don't
but
want to
so
get into
here's the
all that
issue. Here's
again.
the issue. So we're talking about the election season here. You have a party who supports abortion and supports abortion so much that they park a van outside of one of their conventions and kill a whole bunch of babies. Like so that's on one hand. On the other hand, we're saying you should be able to decide if you can kill your children or not. But it's kind of wrong after a certain point, and like I don't know, it's kind of it's gray. It's difficult. It's a complex issue, and so those are our options. One that
Uh-huh.
actively supports abortion and wants you to kill your children because that's freedom, and then you have a party that's saying it's kind of whatever.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, I would rather have the party that's like, yeah, you can decide that, but there's stipulations rather than a party that's like, yeah, you can kill your child anytime you want,
Yeah, there's an
including
obvious.
after birth.
I
That's
think they're both
totally
wrong. I
wrong.
think they're both wrong. I think one
Right.
is more wrong.
Yeah.
And so you have what I don't want is you have pro-life people who are saying don't vote Republican because they support abortion. And I think that that's wrong because if you don't vote for the party that supports less abortion, what you're doing is you're allowing the party who wants more abortion to rise up.
So
It's a
what are
really
people that are saying that, what are they voting? Are they voting?
not voting.
They're just not voting?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
If you don't support life, I'm not voting for you. Which is like, gosh, like I see what they're saying because it's like you don't want
Right.
to vote for someone who still supports abortion, but at the same time,
But at the same time, do we want Kamala Harris to
what's
be
the
president?
alternative? Right? What's the alternative? Someone who you have a party who supports tampons in men's restrooms and women who can kill their children in the womb. Like that if that's the alternative, you have a duty to vote
Yeah.
for whatever is against that. And even if there's still murder on both sides, but one is significantly less, like let's do that. Here's the thing with Trump. He does not understand abortion, I don't think. But what he's done essentially is he's made his voice as powerful, I guess, as the rest of us. So he's taken abortion and taken it away from being a federal issue where the top people get to decide whether abortion is right or wrong. And he said, all right, everyone gets to decide now. So he's made the voice of the president as powerful as everyone else in that. And so when he says, I think you should be able to abort a baby after 6 weeks, when he says that, which is what he supports, his voice isn't as strong anymore because he's not put the federal government in that position to decide that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So his voice now he can say, I don't think it's I don't think it's right to ban all abortions, but it's like, okay, that's your opinion. You're wrong. But at least like you're not the one that's deciding. So now we all get to decide. So I see that side where it's like all of us. Now it's the pro-life.
It's such an issue that he's like, you guys handle it amongst yourselves.
Yeah. And then his voice kind of becomes one of us and not like, hey, I'm going to decide for everyone. It's like, you don't like his point of view? Great. Tell him he doesn't get to decide for all of us. And that's what he did. He said, okay, I don't get to decide for all of us. And then he said, now all of you get to decide. So now we get to discuss it. And I think it's up to the pro-life movement and Christians to convince everyone, and not really convince, but I guess reveal to everyone what is abortion really. And so now it's up to us. Now it's up to us to look to our neighbors and say, abortion's wrong. It should never be supported. You should never support it. What's crazy is how many women are voting for that. Women have been brainwashed enough to vote for a party for one specific reason, and that reason being the right to kill their child. They've been convinced enough by their parents, by their grandparents, or whoever, other women in their lives, that this is a woman's health issue and that we need to vote for women's freedom because it's your right and your freedom to kill your child. That's sick to me that there's so many women who are voting just solely for the reason to be able to kill their children, even if they choose not to kill a child themselves. It's like, that's so disgusting to me. This is where men need to step up too. Like men, I think men are hugely, I think men are a huge part of it. Fathers need to step up. You create a child, you're responsible for that child.
Well, I saw this video clip of this man. He was speaking at some sort of conference, and he said, not enough men speak on this, but he was basically saying like abortion is wrong. And he went in to say that, like, I had a daughter, her name was Samantha. I don't know if her name was Samantha, but he's like, her name was Samantha and her mother took her from me. She got a late term abortion and took her from me.
Yeah.
And today she would have been 7 years old or something like that. And he was crying. This man was sobbing. It's like, it's not just a women's thing. It's like, once that life is created, like that life doesn't belong to you and it doesn't belong to your husband. That life belongs to God, but you're responsible for it, you know? And so it's just.
Yeah, you're responsible for your actions. And
right, like if you're so worried, and here's what I don't get. And I mean, I get it. It's a worldly thing. But if you're so worried about not being able to have an abortion, maybe you should not be having sex.
But what about rape? That's what they'll say. What about rape? Rape is.
I think
less than 1%.
Probably 99% of abortions are
convenience.
People going out there and sleeping around and having sex with whoever they want to recklessly because they know that if I get pregnant, I don't have to have this baby.
That's freedom. That's what they say. So women's freedom is them being able to have sex with whoever they want and create as many lives as they want and murder their children whenever they want.
That's disgusting. And I'm telling you right now, that's how you get STDs. I don't know who needs to hear that. Somebody needs to hear that. Yeah. That's disgusting.
I think getting STDs.
Giving your body away to random people like that, that's disgusting.
Getting STDs is your right. If you want to go get STDs, that's your right. Because that only impacts you. But if you're going to create a human being out of it, that's another human being with their own rights, and your rights end where that life begins. Mm-hmm. So, sorry. But I think women who support abortion, something needs to change about that. And I think men are the biggest. I think fathers need to be able to have that conversation with their daughters and say, if you have sex and create a child, you do not have the right to kill that child.
Yeah.
And the fathers could do it in a loving way. Everyone always tells me, what about your daughter? If she got raped, are you going to make her carry the child? And I would say, yes, if we're in that situation and Phoebe is 25 or whatever, or even if she's younger, Does she have to carry the child? I don't think the child has anything to do with the crime. It's just a human being who doesn't know, they had no part to play in that crime. So you shouldn't punish a human for the crime of its father.
Well, and then it goes back to even the most disgusting, horrible situations, God can turn those for good, right?
Yeah, it would be a really hard thing. I'm
It
not
would be
saying it would,
so hard.
I'm not saying I would celebrate
saying,
it or want it to happen.
right. I'm
but
saying right now, like if that happened to Phoebe, I would be heartbroken. I'd be
Yeah.
throwing up. I would be absolutely disgusted.
I don't even want to think about that.
I don't want to think about it.
But you don't fix it by killing the child. That's not how you don't unrape someone by murdering their child.
Well, and then I think it also goes back to like seeing every situation from a biblical perspective. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. I'm not saying, like, trust me, if it's hard for anybody, it's hard for me. But like it's something that I've been actually trying to do a lot, is like looking at every situation, especially bad situations. I'm like,
Is
okay,
this really
God,
bad?
like how do you see this situation? What can you do with this situation? This isn't that bad. And I find myself lately thinking a lot like this life is not that important, if that makes sense. Because the bigger picture is, even if this life was horrible for me, like my final destination is going to be so amazing. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Well, so this is a whole conversation that we should have later, but I think that this life does matter. And when you look at the world in a way that says this life doesn't, and I'm not saying this is what you're saying, and I think we can really dive into this at a different time.
Maybe
But
next time.
this life, I just want to end it with saying like this life does matter.
What you do with your life, I think that matters.
Yes, there's significance to your life. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it.
Right.
So God has given us life, understanding that there's significance to it, but there is a bigger story at play. So your part to play, you're not doing the whole thing, but you might have a dirty job, but that's a part to play in a massive story, which I think makes it more significant. Like your life has a place in this huge thing. You notice the puzzle if one piece is missing. And so all these pieces need to be, they're still significant, even though they're part of a larger puzzle. Anyway, so something that I teased earlier, which is, are we racist?
Yeah, so our last podcast episode, we posted a clip, and here's the hard thing is like, it's just a clip. It's not the full conversation. So it was really taken out of context, but we posted a clip talking about how Kamala was code switching, but we didn't say code switching.
I didn't even know what that was.
I didn't know what that was either. I know now.
I didn't know it was labeled. I didn't know it was like.
I didn't even know it was a real thing. I've never met anybody, and
I understand.
Everybody in these comments are like, obviously these white people have never met or been around a black person, and like Carlos's stepdad is black. We've been around.
No, don't even play that game. I don't care. I don't need to know a black person to not be racist. Like, because then you play this game of how many black people do you know?
Right.
And you're less racist depending on how many black people you know. How many black people's feet have you kissed?
Yeah.
Because you're less racist if you've kissed more. It's like, to me,
right.
Your skin color does not matter, just even the slightest. I could not care less. I could not care less about your skin color. And unless I'm doing your makeup and I need to pick concealer, I do not care about your skin color.
What matters to me is your character.
Yeah.
And if your character is terrible, Kamala Harris, and you happen to be black, that does not make me racist.
Yeah, and I think most of the people who are calling us racist are the racist ones. They're just racist against white people, which is that's a whole. Apparently, you can't be racist against white people. Yeah. Whoa.
It's so stupid. This whole freaking.
If you judge anyone based off their skin color, if you negatively judge anyone and treat them as lesser than you based off their skin color, you are retarded.
You can't say that word because now you're.
No, I don't care. You're retarded. If you judge people based off their skin color, you're retarded, whether they're dark brown or light brown, because we're all brown.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid. I think being called a racist is stupid. Like, I think if I wore a freaking white pointy hat and I went and I had started killing black people because they're black, I'm pretty sure I'd be proud of that and I'd call myself a racist.
Right.
And you have the right to call me racist, whatever. Racists nowadays, what they're saying is anyone who points out skin color is racist or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like, to me, I think, or anyone who's mean to black people. That's what it is. If you're mean to black people, then you're racist.
No matter what their character is like or how they treat you.
Yeah, if you're mean to black people, you're racist.
And
so if you say anything mean about black people, you're racist, which I think if that's the definition, if that's the new definition of racism, it's just as bad as sexism or any, like, I don't think racism, being called racist today is as significant as it was 100 years ago.
Right.
Because if you were a racist 100 years ago, that meant that you legitimately hated people based off the color of their skin.
Now what it means is not just if you say anything bad or mean, but it's if you offend anybody or if you hurt anybody's feelings.
Which are...
Even if you're calling them out. And here's the thing. What you said about Kamala Harris was you said black scent. And I think that's what, if you had just said code switching, which we didn't know what that was, but if you had just said that, I think that we wouldn't have got so much hate. But because you said black scent, which I don't know if you made that up or I had never heard that before. I thought it was a little bit funny because it was a little bit clever.
I would not defend black scent with my life. Like I do not care. It was just something that I was like, she's claiming to be black and she changed her voice based off of what she said. And so that's why I was saying she had a black scent. Like she changed her voice to be more black, which I was pointing that out as kind of funny. Like that's ridiculous.
Right.
And that's not why I'm not voting for her.
Exactly. We're not voting for her based on the way she talks. If you had watched that clip and you came to the conclusion that we're racist because we're not voting for her based on the way that she talks, go back and like watch the full clip for full context before you open your mouth.
I thought you were going to say go to hell.
No, I would never tell anybody that. But
JD Vance said that. That was a reference.
Oh, well, and then here's the other thing is if black people or other people are code switching, that's fine. If you're like code switching based on like the group of people you're around, but I don't think that's what Kamala Harris was doing. Because yes, she was around a black crowd, but you cannot tell me that there were not any white people around.
Well, no,
she's doing it based on who she's talking to.
And it's not just, my point was, it's not just her voice. It's her policies change based off of who she's around. Like,
yes.
She's a people pleaser. She doesn't actually have morals. And that's my biggest issue with her is that she does not have morals. She just changes who she is.
Yes.
She was
quoted yesterday. She was quoted by, who was it? Was it CNN?
Yeah. The interview.
She was quoted by CNN saying that she would absolutely 100% is for banning fracking. And then she looked at the interviewer after being quoted word for word and said, I never said that. She's a liar. And she's a manipulator.
Well, she didn't say,
and she will not own up to her actions.
She didn't say I didn't say that. She basically just said, well, my values haven't changed, but I would not ban it. And so she was saying,
she's manipulating.
It was like, what are you saying here?
That is why I will not be voting for her, because she's a liar. She's a manipulator. She doesn't have any morals. And honestly, she's stupid.
Yeah.
She's not smart.
She's stupid. If you think that it's freedom and it's a valuable thing for women to be able to kill their children, you're stupid, and I'm not voting for you.
Well, and she's saying, when I'm in office, this is the first thing. You've been in office for 4 years. Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
It's gaslighting.
Like, shut your mouth, own up to your actions. And if you want to change, then say, yeah, I changed my mind. But don't sit there and say, my morals haven't changed, and play this greater than thou freaking role. Like, you are so freaking dumb. And I don't like saying that to people, but you are. Own up to your actions. If you want to gain respect from anybody, like, don't sit there and play both sides and try to freaking people please. Just own your shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, but seriously.
One question that I heard that she should have been asked is like, what has Joe Biden done that you don't agree with and would change? And I think that that's something that should have been asked of her, or should be. Because she's in charge right now. So I think she should say, if she really wanted to get a lot of votes, she should say, I've kind of messed up this past few years. Like we've made some not great decisions. I own up to that. I'm sorry. I'm learning
Exactly.
from that. And I think I'm the best person to fix this because I understood why it went wrong or
Right.
something like that.
And that's what's so attractive about Trump is that he owns up to his word is his word, right? He doesn't go back. He doesn't go back and forth. He's not like, oh yeah, for you guys, I will ban abortion, but for you guys, I will keep it open. Like, I'm not saying that anybody has said this, but like, he's not doing that. He's like, this is what I'm saying. This is what I believe. This is what I'm going to do. And if you don't like it, don't
Yeah.
vote for me.
Yeah, he has values.
That's what I like. He's not. The thing is I know that when I vote Trump and
Not
he
that-
gets elected president, he's going to do what he said he's going to do. He's not going to lie to you and then burn this country to hell.
Not that he's the most moral person at all.
I don't think so. But he keeps his word.
But you know what
And
you're
that's
getting.
what I like. Exactly.
So back to the whole racist thing. Here's kind of how I describe it. And we just took a tangent and now I'm bringing it back. But
I got really upset.
yeah, that's funny.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Especially
But-
like having kids in this world.
So yeah, which I found out Kamala doesn't have kids. Which I don't think you should be president if you don't have kids. I mean, she has 2 from her husband that she adopted, maybe. So they're her kids, but she's never had kids. So I don't know if I trust a woman who hasn't had kids to lead the country. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But talking about Black people, here's my issue. I think biblically we all have a seat at the table, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that means around the table, we all have a seat. I don't think there's any chairs on top of the table. I think what's happened is in our history, in American history, Black people didn't have a seat at the table. They were told to sit in a different room, maybe, which is wrong. I think everyone has a seat at the table, whether your skin is light or dark, whether you're a man or woman, everyone has a seat at the table. My issue is with when you start to tell Black people, oh, hey, these guys just came from the other room. Like they need to be at the table, but actually let's put them on the table because they haven't been at the table like all of us. And so they haven't had the same chance. They need to stand on the table and be closer to the food so that we can make up for them being in the other room. And that's where I have an issue. And I'm like, get off the table. And then if you tell them to get off the table, you're the racist one. Like, no, get off the table, sit next to us. Like, you're not any better than anyone. You're also not worse than anyone. You're equivalent. Sit at the table. I think the same thing's going on with women. We're saying women haven't had rights. Get them on the table. All the women and Black people need to be on the table. Nope,
Yeah.
Get off the table. I'm not a sexist for telling you to get off the table. Get off the table, sit next to me.
Yeah.
You're not better than me. You're also not worse than me. Sit next to me.
Yeah.
If you think that you're better than me, I'm going to correct that just as much as I would tell you to come into the room and sit next to me. Like that, those are both extremes, right? Being in a
Right.
different room and then being on top of the table. Like, no, get in this room, get off the table, sit down.
Yeah.
Like we're all invited to the table. Don't act a fool.
Right.
And I think that that's what's going on. But you're a sexist, you're a racist if you tell them to get off the table. And then anyone who's, like the trans people, same thing. They're standing on the table saying, you hate trans people. Like, no, get off the table. Stop burning things. Stop spray painting things. Get off the table. Sit down. Be equivalent.
Be civil.
Yeah. Or a woman who has had an abortion, she gets on the table and she writes, I killed my baby on her stomach. Like, what are you doing? Get off the table. Like, stop acting like you're better than everyone.
Yeah.
And stop acting like me telling this person to get off the table is such a big issue. I'm not racist for that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's not equivalent to what it was, to what racism was 100 years ago, because racism now is telling Black people to get off the table, where it used to be telling people to get away from the table and go
Or
sit in a
killing
different
people.
room. Yeah. Go sit in a different room or go to the train station, as Yellowstone would say.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge difference. Like both are kind of pulling them down, but one's pulling them down from a place of superiority and one's pulling them down from being equivalent to everyone else.
Well, and then
I think everyone has the same opportunity.
That comes back to people getting offended or people getting their feelings hurt or people getting embarrassed. If you do that to anybody, if you make anybody feel that way, you're racist. Well, my mom I was talking to her about this last week, and she said, well, in Matthew, the Bible talks about in the last days, people will be offended. And here's the Bible verse, Matthew 24:10. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So we're seeing that, right?
Well, that's always happened.
If you're offending, this is talking about.
Jesus was asked, how do we know that the last days are coming? And he's saying all these things are going to happen.
Yes.
All these things. He's not saying that this is the sign of the end. He's saying all of these things are going to happen. People are going to get offended. There's going to be wars. There's going to be rumors of wars. But in the end, just believe and you'll make it. So he's not saying that it's the sign of the end of the world.
Well, that's not what I'm saying either.
But he is calling out.
But I'm saying like we're seeing this. Like if you don't believe the Bible, look at this. Like we're seeing these things. These things are happening.
If you don't believe the Bible, you're stupid.
Stop. We need to stop calling people stupid. But yeah, so they're saying, and what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? He's saying, they're asking, what's the sign of you coming back?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things he says.
Right. He's not saying that this is a sign of me coming back. His response is all of these things are going to happen and continue to happen until I come back. That's Jesus's response, which is kind of a non-answer, but that's how Jesus goes, you know. He's like, all these things are going to happen. It's going to get rough. I think he even says, like, this is not the end. At some point, he's like, all these things are going to happen. Still be patient because I'm coming. Anyway, there's kind of some other things that I wanted to talk about, but I think we hit a lot of important things. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was whether or not you should celebrate your child's first birthday, but we can throw that to a different time. We'll have more children.
So random.
Yeah. We're trying to have a huge family, maybe 20 kids.
No, absolutely. Not 20. Because honestly, I don't think, first of all,
it'll take a long time, honestly. 20 kids would take at least 30, 40 years.
That's insane. I know my body couldn't handle that. My body could barely handle the 2 that I have.
So you don't have to worry about that. Like by that time you'll have hit menopause.
Right.
So how many kids can we really have? Anyway, we'll talk more about it and get back to you guys on that.
Yeah.
And if you have more kids, reach out to us. Let us know your tips and tricks because we're going to catch up. 16 kids and counting. We're coming for you.
Stop it. I don't know.
26 and counting.
I think like 5 is my max.
We'll see. I feel like after 5, there's no point in holding back. Anyway, 20th episode, pretty big deal. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride and listening in. Please share the podcast with any of your friends that you think about. Whoever you thought about when I just said that, send it to them. Tell them why they should listen. We love you. We appreciate you for listening and doing that. Also, leave us reviews and comments. Follow our social media. Comment on that. We love engaging with all the comments on social media. I do most of it because we get a lot of hate, and Emily doesn't. I
don't really read the comments.
It gets to her.
So if you're ever to comment directed at me, just know Carlos is going to see it first, and I might not see it.
Be nice, and I'll read it to her. But yeah, other than that, shout out to my mom again and my stepdad. Still feels weird saying.
I know it's weird, but that's what he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But shout out to them for watching the babies and getting them some cool gifts to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, we love you guys. Bye.
Bye.